good morning or afternoon or noon or midnight, which isn't morning or afternoon, and noon is also morning, not morning or afternoon. My name is William Espy, and today I'm going to be talking about Barnes v. Felix. Now, this is a very important court case right now. It's going through the Supreme Court right now as I'm recording this, and it's probably going to be out in a little bit. We should, if the Supreme Court doesn't take their time, which they kind of always do. But they will eventually release a decision, and we should see the results pretty soon. But for now, although we do not have the results, I'm going to summarize this, see what happened, what might happen, depending on what the decision will be, and basically how this is going to affect law and precedent for the future. So, let's get started. Barnes v. Felix, examining the validity of the moment of threat doctrine. So, before we even get into what moment of threat is, or basically how this might affect things, I will go over what actually happened. So, on the 28th of August, 2016, which was 9 years ago, took a while to go through the court system, Barnes was pulled over in a rental car by Roberto Felix. So Felix is our officer in this case, and Ashton Barnes is our victim. Felix pulled the car over because Barnes' rental car was associated for outstanding toll violations. Now, Felix, of course, asked Barnes for the driver's license. Barnes did not have the driver's license or other documents and suggested that they might be in the back of their car. Barnes then exited the car at Felix's request, at which point the car began to roll forward. Now, although this is in the slide, we are not quite sure exactly why the car began to roll forward. It's a little bit uncertain. Perhaps it was because Barnes was trying to escape. Perhaps it was because he accidentally hit the stick. We don't really know, which is very important for this next part. Almost immediately after, Felix jumped onto the car, pointed his gun at Barnes, and fired 2 shots, killing him. Later on, his mother, Barnes' mother, Janice Barnes, filed an excessive force claim against Felix. But later, this was dismissed by the Fifth Circuit Court under the moment of threat doctrine, which I'll get to just a little bit. This has since then gone all the way up to the Supreme Court, and, like I said, is being actively adjourned. Now, the big issue here is the moment of threat doctrine actually valid according to the Fourth Amendment? So basically, the basic moment of threat doctrine, which isn't a real legal document or a real doctrine, it's more of combining multiple different precedents into one concise document. It basically says that if someone uses lethal force, the validity of whether or not that lethal force had the proper cause or they had the reason to use lethal force comes only from the moments right before when the threat showed itself or in the moments immediately after the threat showed itself. And it doesn't need to take into account any of the events before any immediate threat was shown. Now, all the circuit courts are incredibly split about this. You have the 2nd, 4th, 5th, and 8th courts have all upheld this. The 1st, 3rd, 6th, 7th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and DC courts have all rejected this. So basically, the lower circuit courts are totally split on this issue. So all this division within the lower courts is exactly one of the reasons why the Supreme Court actually took this up in the first place. Because, well, they want to provide clarification for the lower courts who have been arguing about this forever, basically. Which goes into our next slide, the possible impact of the decision. Now, this is of course going to set a legal precedent for future decisions by the lower court or make them reconsider the past rulings. It also theoretically lead to revision or some clarification of the Fourth Amendment's application of use of deadly force. As well, it could also affect qualified immunity, which protects officers from the breach of a clearly established right of the Fourth Amendment. So it could expand or narrow how big that is or how many things it affects. And you can see how big of a court decision this is just in the amount of briefs written about it. A tremendous amount of briefs have been written to the Supreme Court from a bunch of police organizations, the Sheriff's National Association, Los Angeles County Police, Texas Municipal League of Intergovernmental Risk Pool. A bunch of these, all over the course of just over a year, actually. You can go all the way up here. We can see goes to June 2024. And we have even more briefs starting in March. So this has been going on for about a year. And it's pretty important, as you can see. And, well, yeah. Will the Supreme Court uphold or deny this? Will it affect qualified immunity? Will Felix actually get a punishment for this? We will see, hopefully. I might cover this when the Supreme Court actually releases the decision. But until then, goodbye. Good luck. Yeah.